Rutherford Issues with Brian Barrett on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
And Rutherford Issues is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. You know, when it comes to critical updates, MTE wants to make sure they can reach you right away. So make sure your info is current just by logging on to MTE.com and verifying your phone number and your email. Well, we're here to talk with John Mitchell with the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. And summertime is a time for vacations, and people are out and doing this, that, and the other. And John, unfortunately, maybe they aren't thinking about donating blood. So I always like to start off in the summer by making sure people know that, you know, take a few minutes and give the gift of life, right?
Give the gift of life. And, you know, what would be the best case scenario is if we had a lot of first-time donors.
Yeah.
You know, if you haven't given blood before and you've thought, oh, that's kind of a neat idea. But then again, if you've got someone in your family that's dealt with cancer, or, you know, people that give platelets, that's key for people's recovery after, you know, they've been in a fire or have a burn situation. So just create a new habit this year and give blood, and download the Red Cross Blood Donor app, and it'll keep you on pace, and you'll be saving lives and feeling good about it.
That's the best way to, and for a first-timer, I mean, when I gave blood for the first time many, many years ago, we didn't have these apps and all this fun stuff, you know, and so there was a little bit of unknown going into that. But now you've got all kinds of easy ways to schedule and that kind of thing. So that's nice.
Yeah, not only can you use that app to schedule, but it'll, you know, do a mini tracker of your health history. You know, it'll log in your blood pressure rating over all the times you give. Let's say if you give 6 times a year, you'll have a chart that'll show, you know, what your blood pressure was, what your blood sugar is. And, you know, that kind of thing is a helpful tool. You can go into your doctor's office and say, here's what my, you know, what my blood pressure's been this year.
Those are handy things now that I am one of those people.
I'm with you, right there with you, Brian. I'm making accommodations and trying to improve my health and my habits every day.
Yep. I found a really cool app, and it's called Smart BP. Now, there's an ad that pops up wanting me to purchase the app.
Yeah.
But it lets me put my blood pressure, pulse rate, all of that kind of thing in, and it keeps a track of it. And so I had been doing that, and when I went to see the cardiologist, I showed that. She said, "You're on top of it, aren't you?" And I felt like $1 million.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
on top of it. Yeah. That's why I'm in your office. But it is nice to be able to show, especially blood sugar and blood pressure and that kind of thing, over a period of time, because otherwise they're just getting a snapshot of that current moment when they take it.
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, the Red Cross does so many things. I don't know. I guess maybe just because I hear so many times Bart saying on Good Neighbor events, you know, blood drive, American Red Cross in my ear every single day, which is a nice thing. But that's one of the things that I think about. But the Red Cross is so much more than that. When you talk to community members, what do you tell them? What is your 90 seconds of this is what your American Red Cross does here?
Yeah, our American Red Cross is basically there for people in their greatest time of need. And that greatest time of need could be a home fire. It could be a service member is enlisted in the Army and is across seas, and someone in their family dies, and they need to get that soldier home to be with the family during that difficult time. And that's the communication links, the emergency communication links of the service armed forces. It could be somebody's greatest time of need could be they have fallen out with a cardiac arrest, but somebody is trained in CPR and has the ability to keep them alive and get them to, the ambulance picks them up, takes them to the hospital, and they survive because somebody was trained in CPR. I started with the, disaster assessment or the disaster side, the home fire. They've standing outside in their house coat and looking at their house burn and all their possessions inside, and they don't know what their next step is. And that's when the Red Cross shows up and says, we're here for you. We know that you need to take some next steps, and here's some financial assistance to do that. And then we open up a case and try to help them navigate all the different needs they're going to have moving forward. So that's what the Red Cross is. It's helping people in their greatest time of need.
And maybe for those our age or a little older, it was swim lessons. I mean, it could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah, and honestly, our programs are quite vast. And so
Yeah.
I'll have a tendency to forget about that. But on the training side, I mentioned the CPR, but the swim lessons is key. And we're always trying to dig deep into the communities and try to really look for the at-risk population. And as I'd mentioned the last time I was here, one of the things that we're looking to is to really address water safety with the African American community and the Hispanic community, because unfortunately the stats show they have a higher rate of deaths to that. And so we're really looking on ways to kind of get into those communities, get the awareness out, and try to see if we can get more people to take swim lessons. But even before that, have some basic awareness on what's some steps to make sure you don't get in trouble while you're in the water.
Honestly, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the American Red Cross is that it's government funded and all government employees and things of that nature, when in fact, and we're going to talk about community mobilization and what that means, and volunteerism is such a huge part of what you do.
It is. And, you'd mentioned we're actually a government instrumentality. We were set up by the government not to be a government agency, but we were also set up to be an instrumentality so we can assist in those situations, those large-scale disasters. And so we do receive our funding from corporations and individuals, and that's what allows us to take that goodwill and mobilize volunteers to go help, and also mobilize and take that money that is invested in people and move that to the center that needs it at the time. And it sometimes is that local house fire, and sometimes it's a higher level that's a hurricane, just like we had with Hurricane Helene, that really made some devastating damage over in East Tennessee.
Yeah. And John Mitchell is with us. He is the executive director of the Heart of Tennessee chapter of the American Red Cross. And just to kind of understand, you're doing local work, boots on the ground, volunteers here in Rutherford and 15 other counties here in Middle Tennessee. There are other chapters all across the country, and your world, the work of the Red Cross is even international. So when you have that local home fire, your chapters are the ones that kind of come to the rescue. But when it's, a large-scale Hurricane Helene situation, chapters from all over the country kind of flood into that local area that needs the help. So that's kind of how you mobilize. But let's talk about mobilizing in the community. What is the work in our communities that maybe our listeners can get involved in? Yeah,
and that's what I mentioned before. Community mobilization is a buzzword that you'll be hearing us use. So, we started, back during the Civil War. Clara Barton seen the need out on the battlefield, and we've been going for a long time. So I think it's very healthy for an organization like the Red Cross to kind of challenge themselves and say, where do we need to make some adjustments? Where do we need to tweak? So to your point, in community mobilization, we want to make sure that we are empowering other organizations to do what we do in time. So here's a good example. If we have, a total of 16 counties, including Rutherford, and we have several volunteers up on the north side of the state, and there is a tornado that rips through, one of those counties. Well, it's going to take us a while to, get our team together and get up there. But what we want to do a better job in the future is mobilizing a community to be ready to respond. So in other words, we have a shelter trailer up in that location. So it has the cots, it has the things we need. So instead of waiting for us to be the first one on the scene, we want to develop a relationship with a church or an organization that says, hey, let us know how we can help right on the front end, So we want them to know, hey, here's our trailer. You guys can go ahead and be setting up, and we're still coming with our resources and, the plan that you put forth when you have a disaster. But we want to empower and engage the community to be part of that response from the get-go. They're always going to be, communities respond to communities.
Sure.
And so we're learning that we've got to do a better job of, for lack of better terms, getting out of our way. We may have some, methods that we've done in the past that we can challenge and say, well, today, in today's society, today's technology, how can we do that? A great example is what happened over in East Tennessee while I was over there for Hurricane Helene. Of all the different volunteer opportunities that we have, one of them is called disaster assessment. And so you get volunteers and you train them and you say, okay, we've got to determine which one of these homes is either major destroyed or uninhabitable, period. And those are the two qualifications that lead to more financial assistance. So there was a long training that people may go through, and they may go through these steps and fill out these forms. This would amaze me because I've seen how we've operated, and I've seen how we've said, no, you've got to do it this way. Mm-hmm. But the United Way came, the East Tennessee United Way up in Kingsport said, we want to help. We have some volunteers that want to help. And so they said, if they can come and do like a 1 or maybe 2 hour training, we're going to have them do the disaster assessment. And that was unheard of at that point. We used to think, oh, it's got to be a Red Cross volunteer doing it the Red Cross way. But we said, hey, nowadays with technology, if you can take a picture like this and this, then we know what the damage is of that home. And they did that really quick orientation with what you would call community volunteers, not Red Cross volunteers. And they took a task that could take a long time and turned it around real quickly. So it was a win-win for everybody. The United Way wanted to engage their volunteers. The faster you do the disaster assessment, the quicker you can give out the financial need. And so that's one of the better examples of us.
And maybe people who knew the community better than Red Cross coming in from other parts of the country.
And that's the key, Brian, because the community mobilization conversation we're having today, and it's going to be ongoing, and it's a newer concept. It's kind of one of those things. It's the same thing, only different. We know these things, but we have to be purposeful about making adjustments. But the community knows the community. So why in the world would we get in their way to say this is how we want to serve you? We want to come in and say, what do you do? So we've come up with a new program called CAP. That's a Community Adaptation Program. So we want to have pre-existing memos of understanding with some smaller churches that are always going to step up and say, I want to, do something. Maybe they're not going through this intensive training, but bottom line, when that community's hit, they're going to stand up. So we want to have that front line or that early relationship with them that we will end up developing through the disaster. Reedyville's a great example.
I was going to say the two examples locally that I remember vividly, one was Reedyville and one was the Good Friday tornado when New Vision stepped up and they were a place, a shelter.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And then I can't remember the church in Reedyville, but
New Hope Church of Christ.
New Hope Church
I
of
wish
Christ.
I could remember the pastor's name. We got to know
Ralph
him well.
Richardson.
Thank you. I tell you what, but good one.
It's my cousin.
Yeah. Oh, I never knew that. Yeah. I never knew that.
I don't think I've told you that.
It doesn't
but yeah.
surprise me. What a great person. And so as we, in real time, we respond to Reedyville. We're there in a fairly quick manner.
Yeah.
But the epicenter was at New Hope Church of Christ. That's what everybody knew. And so we didn't say, well, our shelter's down the road at the school. Everybody needs to come here. We just started working with him. And there was a time for, Pastor Ralph to get to know us and to understand we were wanting to be collaborative and not competitive. And it all worked out. So we're
because
just trying.
They mobilized themselves with some things that they wanted to do, right?
Well, they did, and the community did in its own right. So
Sure.
When we do mass care, which is either sheltering or feeding, we are sitting there going, okay, this is that type of disaster. It's this size and scope. And then they say, we need to do all this feeding. We didn't need to the extent we said we did because they were doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the type thing. We would rather save that part of the disaster response money and give it to the people that really need it, that's home was destroyed.
So instead of going out to somewhere and buying pallets of water when the church was already doing that, then that money could be funneled into, other assistance.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Makes sense.
So thank you for bringing up that, and that's really neat. Two good guys I know I didn't know were related, so that's pretty cool.
Well, I don't tell many people, so
yeah.
Just great examples, and I think that's an event, John, that probably you came away from thinking we need more community mobilization. We need to work more with. I mean, that is a prime example of how things could have been done better and how you kind of made some changes on the fly to make it work.
Yeah.
But, sometimes these disaster responses give you the chance to step back and say, what can we do better? What can we do differently to be more efficient to help more people? And because every dollar is precious that come in for donations and disaster relief.
Absolutely. And if you scale it up, unfortunately, last year was a little bit calmer, knock on wood, but you could say that there wasn't as many natural disasters last year as the year before with
Sure.
Different things. But then if you pull the lens back and you look out on a national level, and there's, forest fires happen out in the West, and
Right.
you look at it on a national level, one of the things that we want to do is, if we're moving a lot of resources across the nation and we can have local people oriented to do those type of tasks, that's even better for the donor dollar as well. We're always going to send some supervisors and leaders that have been trained and they know how to set up a disaster response operation, because there's a lot of best practices that you need to follow. But the more we can get the community mobilized to help themselves and us be just a part in that process, that's our goal.
Well, I can see Rutherford County being one of those places, and the state of Tennessee being the volunteer state. I can see us being one of those shining examples of how this works, and a place and maybe even a training ground and a testing ground for some of this, so I'm sure it's going to take community partners and people who may be listening now that are at a church and say, you know what, we would step up and do that. And the chances of a tornado hitting your community where you would be needed as a shelter in your particular part of the county right now is very slim.
Yeah.
But when it is needed, that's when it needs to be mobilized. And so you have to be ready for those things. And so stepping into that doesn't mean that you have to immediately be ready to open up a shelter tomorrow.
Right. and the key is there's a lot of players out there. And,
Yeah.
we've got, Chris Clark, who I mentioned sometimes, that runs the emergency management, and so their team's out there. But the more we can all work in, collaboration and know what each person can bring to the table, what each organization can bring to the table on the front end, the better, process that's going to be for everybody. So if you're an organization, if you're a church, if you're a business and you want to learn, how can I be more involved with the Red Cross and helping when that time comes, give me a call, John Mitchell, 615-651-3405, 615-651-3405, or visit us at our office at 501 Memorial Boulevard. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can partner together.
John Mitchell, our guest today from the heart of Tennessee. Red Cross here today.